back to Triplecast, episode number 13, as we continue our Triplecast on the Alien series. This time we are going to be talking about Alien 3 for your listening pleasure. Stick around. Hello, Clint.
Hello, Daryl.
Good to be back with you this evening.
It is evening, isn't it?
It is. We are doing all these Triplecasts for this Alien trilogy, or whatever. I know it's a quadrilogy, but for us, we're doing it as a trilogy. All in one night, all in one sitting, back to back to back, a podcasting marathon, as it were, but releasing them over time. It's almost like time travel of sorts.
It is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. I've got my flux capacitor over here. I had to take it out of my DeLorean today, but it's working pretty effectively.
Yeah, are we podcasting at 88 miles per hour?
That's exactly what we're doing, yes. Podcasting at 88 miles an hour. Talking about Alien 3
Alien
for
Cubed,
you today.
you mean?
It does. It has the little superscript 3.
Yeah.
It's not, it's raised up a little bit.
It's a cubicle alien.
Yeah. Which would have been nice, had they been fighting the Borg. I could have seen how the little cube would have fit in.
Yeah.
But they were not fighting the Borg in this, and so I wasn't sure if there was something to the 3 that I wasn't getting. Did it really mean cubed, or was it just trying to be fancy and creative?
Trying to be fancy and creative.
Okay. Well, that's disappointing then. I was hoping I missed something.
It was in a jail cube.
I guess it did say something about it being 10 miles square at one point, didn't it?
Yeah. I don't know.
That's a stretch.
I don't know.
All right, well, we're talking about Alien 3, directed or written by David Giller and Walter Hill and Larry Ferguson, directed by David Fincher, which we'll talk more about, starring, of course, Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley, Charles S. Dutton as Dylan, Charles Dance as Clemens, Paul McGann as Golick, Brian Glover as Andrews, Ralph Brown as Aaron, and Danny Webb as Morse. Also had Christopher John Fields as Rains, Holt McCallany, I don't know how to pronounce that, as Junior, and we saw the reprise of Lance Henriksen as Bishop in this one, Bishop 2, because he wasn't the android, he was the man that the android Bishop was modeled after.
Was he?
Yeah, that's what he said.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Is that?
I'm going to ask it. Well, why don't I ask it now?
Okay.
You know that final scene
Uh-huh.
where he gets hit in the head?
It looked like he had red blood to me.
And his ear is hanging off?
I didn't see that.
If you go back and look, his ear is literally hanging off with red blood.
But it had red blood, so I assumed he was human.
I think he's just a later version of the android.
Well,
his ear was literally hanging off, and he's watching Ripley climb up on this thing and saying, "No, Ripley, don't."
Well, it certainly wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for him to be a later android that doesn't bleed the white, except that in the next movie we see an android, and that android still bleeds white.
Yeah. That doesn't mean necessarily.
I think it does.
There's a 200-year time difference?
Yes.
Maybe it does. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a replicant.
That's a different Ridley Scott movie.
Okay.
Ridley Scott's not associated with this movie.
Just
Specifically.
Okay.
That's right. That's an interesting conversation. I didn't pick up on the ear thing. I might have had the same thought you did, though.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, let's get into it here and talk about our thoughts on Alien 3. Actually, I got ahead of myself. We have a few other little housekeeping things to talk about here. And I'm way off in my notes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the music was done by Elliot Goldenthal. The movie had a budget of $63 million.
Quite a bit more than the last one. It was 18.1, if I remember correctly.
And it still pulled in almost $160 million.
Yeah.
Which is a ridiculous amount of money for this movie to make.
Not bad.
No, it's not too bad. And I'll just go ahead and read the plot. Of course, this comes from IMDb, written by Kerwin Sang this time. After escaping from the alien planet, the ship carrying Ellen Ripley crashes onto a remote and inhabited ore refinery. While living in the ore refinery until she is rescued by her employees, Ripley discovers the horrifying reason for the crash, an alien stowaway. As the alien matures and begins to kill off the inhabitants, Ripley is unaware that her true enemy is more than just the killer alien. Dun, dun, dun.
All right.
All right. So, thoughts on the plot? I thought this was an interesting setting. I know you didn't like it as much, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I like that they went back to having no weapons to fight the aliens, that they had to figure out another way. I like that little twist, kind of going back to the original where they had this killer thing and they really had to outsmart it, which is kind of what they did at the end of the movie.
I'm so glad that you said that. That's definitely something that I want to key in on. It didn't bother me as much that they didn't have weapons in this one, because you're talking about a prison that doesn't really. I mean, the guy in charge, the warden, he's half-baked himself.
Right.
So it made sense to me that there were no weapons in this particular movie. Where the first one, it didn't make as much sense. But you touched on something there that I think is really important when you look at the franchise of Alien. Here we are now talking about the third movie.
Right.
So I want to talk a little bit about some of the larger themes that we've seen through these movies, and that is that these aliens are very adaptable. We saw that very clear in the first movie, but they were very much outgunned in the second movie.
Right.
And the Marines come in there with all the weaponry they could need, and the aliens were still able to pick off almost every single one of them. I mean, you knew that at the end the alien was going to die. I mean, that's just, otherwise they wouldn't have made the movie, right? The humans win in the end.
Right.
But even when they're outgunned and outgunned's the best way to put it, the aliens were able to prevail over that. And so the aliens are very adaptive, very intelligent creatures.
Right.
And so I kind of like the way they kind of went back to that in this time, where it was kind of a battle of the wits,
right,
if you will.
Yeah. No, I completely agree there. I thought there was an interesting appeal to religion where they, they made this a prison by choice, where, these awful men who had done terrible things have isolated themselves and kind of found religion. And I like the way that thread kind of wove through the movie and created attention with Ellen Ripley,
right,
and the alien, almost like this demon creature that had been visited on them.
Sure, it really caused some of them to really question their faith. Some seemed to lose their faith. Some
never really had it.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting take on it.
Yeah. I'll tell you something, though, that bothered me quite a bit, and that was within the first 5 minutes of the movie, maybe not literally, maybe it was 10 minutes, but we find out that Newt is dead. She was like, you talked about in the last podcast about how she was so much better than a cat as far as bringing the audience in and bringing compassion. We were really glad that she was rescued and she had a promising life ahead of her at the end of Aliens, only to find out she's dead in the beginning of this one. That was it's terrible. I hated that.
Yeah.
Find a different way to have Ripley crash land on this planet that doesn't involve this girl that we were so happy for getting killed at the beginning of the movie, or finding out that she's dead at the beginning of the movie.
Right, which made it terrible. That whole opening scene, do you know what that reminded me of? There's going to be one person in the world that gets this reference. But back when the interwebs were new,
okay,
there's, one of those things that you read on the interwebs that probably got passed around as a forward, and it's, the story that a teacher asked these two students to write together. And, it sounds like something out of a Calvin and Hobbes ad, cartoon comic. It may be. But anyways, it's this boy is really into guns and things like that, and then this girl, and so it's all about the space intergalactic battle, and then it becomes the girl's turn to write her paragraph to add on to the story of the boys, and she's like, and they all died and went away, and now we're going to focus on this bunny, this cute little bunny, and it's like there was this battle between James Cameron's idea of where aliens should go and David Fincher's idea, or whoever the writer was, idea. And they basically said, yeah, that stuff, we're just going to take Ripley and get rid of everything else.
Yeah.
And we're going to throw it all out.
It seemed like, yeah. And when we get down to our section on our thoughts on the directing and style and acting, I'll discuss some of the things I found out about David Fincher's role in that, and how he felt about that, and really what James Cameron felt about that. So we'll get to more of that. But since it was at the beginning of the movie and really played heavily into the plot, I felt like I needed to go ahead and mention it now. I was very unsatisfied with that, and then it was pretty disturbing to see this girl having this autopsy performed on her. I mean, they didn't show them cutting into the body,
but
really.
It was still creepy.
Man, it was very disturbing, and I'm glad they didn't show more than they did.
Yeah, me too.
It was pretty hard to watch as it was.
Yep.
Okay. Again, I don't know that I mentioned this in the last podcast. I think I might have forgotten to mention it, but Aliens picked up directly where Alien left off. I mean, it was, as far as the story of Ripley is concerned, I mean, yeah, she had been floating for 57 years between the Alien and Aliens, and here 200 years. Is that right? I'm getting my movies mixed around.
I think that's right. In this one, that was 200 years later.
Okay.
And that the next one is an unknown time.
Okay.
Right?
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But as far as her consciousness, as far as if we were to look at things through her eyes, it was a straight continuation both times, and I kind of liked that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
Not too thrilled where they went after this movie. I thought that they gave this movie a good ending.
Really?
I mean, as far as the Ripley's gone, she did the right thing.
Okay, yes.
She made sure that the aliens were all wiped out.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
And that should have been the button ending. But they made $150 million, so they had to figure out how to make more money.
Sure they did. That's the way Hollywood works.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I felt like the plot on this one was pretty weak. I didn't ever really care about any of the inmates. Of course I care about Ripley, because we've seen her for these 3 movies now.
Right.
Even the doctor character that got killed off pretty early on, I didn't care about him, and I think we were supposed to because I guess they slept together, which was weird. It kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was really odd, the whole thing.
Yeah. There were so many things in this movie that I felt like just didn't fit. You talked about there, it seemed like the story was, I didn't like your story, I'm going to disregard all that and start my own story.
Right.
And I love Charles S. Dutton as an actor. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
And I thought he was good in this movie. I was glad he made it to the end. And it wasn't any surprise because he was the biggest name in the movie besides Sigourney Weaver.
Right.
But I just didn't care about any of the characters. I thought the movie was pretty bad, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The whole idea of them trying to trap the movie, the alien, seemed weak. It was more of what they tried to do in the first movie again, try to trap it through air ducts or try to, that's really what they were trying to do is start a fire in the air ducts and try to get him. I don't know. It just seemed very rehash of what we did before and try to throw in these characters, and it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, it and I know this is a typical Hollywood story where, somebody writes this. I remember Peter Sagal, who does the announcing for the NPR show Wait, Don't Tell Me, was talking about a movie.
I didn't know you listened to that.
I didn't say I listened to it.
Oh,
you? I was just saying there was a story that was about him.
Oh, okay.
He wrote this. He wrote a movie script, and his movie script was all about the revolution of Cuba and about these 2 characters kind of struggling with where they fell in communism and democracy, and it was supposed to be kind of this like epic picture window into 1960s Havana, Cuba, and he went through several rounds and got it sourced, and then what typically happens is somebody latches onto these movies and they try and attach it to another project as a sequel. And so that movie turned into this epic movie about Cuba in the time of Castro was morphed into Dirty Dancing 2 Havana Nights.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, true story.
Are you serious?
Yes. And that kind of stuff happens all the time.
That's terrible.
I mean, I'm trying to remember what Die Hard. Die Hard 2 started out as a completely different movie. And Die Hard 3 again was another movie that they basically took this plot and then inserted Bruce Willis's character John McClane into
or McCain.
McClane.
No, McClane, you're
Yeah.
right.
And then
John
turned
McCain's a different guy.
yeah, and then turned it into Die Hard.
Yeah.
And apparently that's pretty typical. But that's what this movie reminded me of. It's like they had this prison movie where a monster gets loose in the prison, or a really bad person gets loose in this prison of really terrible people. And, well, what if we made that really bad person an alien, and we'll just throw Ripley in the middle of it?
Man, when you put it in those terms, it sounds like that's totally plausible to me that happened. And I just looked up Dirty Dancing Havana Nights, and sure enough, Peter Sagal is credited for writing the story on that.
That's a true story.
That's so disappointing to hear that.
Isn't that funny, though?
Yeah.
That they take something so, it's all about the bottom line.
Sure it is.
So they attach it to another project that they thought they could get more butts and seats on, and it became a sequel. Same thing with the Die Hard series.
Yeah. So the Die Hard sequel was better than this.
Oh, I agree. I think they did a good job making the Die Hard movies work. I really like Die Hard 3.
Let me ask you, since it's just kind of a random question, but it's on my mind. So we've had conversations just off, when we're hanging out with each other before, sequels that are better than the original.
Right.
I remember us playing that game one night. A lot of people like Aliens better than Alien. Clearly, this is not better than either of the previous two. But for you, is Aliens better than Alien?
As a child, yes. As an adult, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jason, the guy I was at work with, he and I were talking about, it definitely is. Aliens is better to him than Alien.
Well, he's a man-child, so.
That's probably true. All right. So I know it's a little off topic. Not completely off topic, but it just occurred to me. I thought I'd ask you. All right. Any other thoughts on the plot or anything that we want to talk about? I mean, I was just utterly disappointed with it, really.
David Fincher has done some fantastic movies. This is not one of his best. You can see that it's dark and very gritty, like Seven was, like the Nine Inch Nails video that he shot, with kind of that brown tint. Everything's really dirty and grimy.
Sure.
Movie not near as good, of course.
Yeah.
But stylistically, you can kind of see where that came from. The special effects, they've come out with a Blu-ray version. All the rest of that, I rented just the normal version because that's what they had. They were terrible.
Yes,
absolutely terrible in this
movie. The first two were better than this, and they technologically speaking, they had less to work with than they did in this. I think that's what they tried to do here. Is there was new CG that was available to them now,
right?
And so they tapped into it. They would have been better sticking with
rubber monsters. Yeah, seriously.
The CG was not ready for what they wanted to use it for.
That's right. I thought it definitely earned its R rating. Lots of spatter, lots of gross body parts and brain fragments. The alien punching through Clement's skull, and you get little bits of brain coming out.
Right.
Lots of F-bombs.
Didn't he even reach back one time and pull out a piece of his brain?
He might have. I don't know. I'm having a hard time remembering. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was gross, and
you mentioned the language.
Yeah. It worked hard to earn its R rating.
I guess.
And
definitely did.
7 was equally as gross. I thought, as far as a disgusting rating, but at least it fit better in the context of that movie. I think personally.
I can go for that too, just because the newt scene was pretty disturbing.
Yeah,
and well, I read a couple of articles on this movie, and from what I understand, they actually cut a lot of that scene out.
Oh, really?
There was more, and people during the screenings, they would show it to groups.
Yeah.
People were walking out.
Oh, wow.
And so they trimmed that down quite a bit.
That's probably good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Another thing I found out reading about it, because I watched all of these movies, with the exception of the first one. I knew that it was Ridley Scott because we were doing a Ridley Scott trilogy.
Right.
The others, I didn't look up any of the actors or directors behind them or writers or anything, which we'll talk more about in Alien Resurrection,
Right.
because it has a Joss Whedon connection, which
Right.
was, I'll have some notes on that.
Okay.
But with this one, when I found out that it was a David Fincher directed movie, that just made me even more disappointed in it, because I know how good he is.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that it really bugged me. I did some research, and I wanted to know, what I wanted to know was how happy was he with the movie after he did it.
Yeah.
What I found out was this was his first directorial job as the director.
For a feature-length film.
That's right. He was brought in late to the project because some other people either, I don't remember if they were let go or they quit the project. So the project was largely, some of those major decisions were already made before he joined the project. And because of that, 20th Century Fox really made some decisions that he did not want or support. And when you, looking back, they do have the Alien quadrilogy that's available.
Right.
And there's some extra bonus footage. All the directors came back and did stuff for that project,
right,
except for him. He hates this project so much. He really doesn't want to be associated with it.
Right.
And that made me feel a lot better, to be honest with you, because it's not
up to snuff.
Representative of what he's capable of doing.
Right. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
We already talked about it not being as good as the previous two.
Right.
So, Daryl, what would you give this movie?
Gosh, like a 5, maybe a 4. I really didn't care for it hardly at all. There were a couple of things I liked about it. I mentioned that I liked it. Kind of got back to the Battle of Wits.
Right.
You do have the iconic scene. We talked in the last one about the kind of the game over, man, game over.
Right.
This one, you've got Ripley and the alien coming right next to her
and sniffing her
and not killing her.
Right. Yeah.
And what I thought was happening originally was that somehow the alien species were of a hive mind of some sort, and they were able to communicate with one another, and it had some sort of knowledge about the previous relationship that they had the previous battle, and based on that, it didn't want to kill her yet, or it wasn't ready to fight that battle yet.
Yeah.
That was what I thought was going on there. It didn't take us too much longer, and we realized that she's impregnated with one of them, and it doesn't want to kill its own.
Right.
And that's why it didn't kill her at that moment. But that was still a very cool scene we got from this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty gross scene with the dog.
Yeah, it was.
Almost grosser than the people, of course. And then the end of the movie, the one thing I will say about this movie is I thought it did a good job of tying up the Alien story.
Franchise.
Right, exactly. It was done after that. So
yeah, even the CG was terrible in that scene, but I liked the way Ripley went down, holding on to that alien to make sure it didn't escape, sacrificing herself for it. Of course, she was dead by the time she hit the lava because the thing had burst out of her chest. But I liked all of that. But even though I liked the way the Ripley character resolved at the end of the film, I'm so glad that this wasn't the end of the Alien franchise. Prometheus aside, we have never seen that yet.
Right.
I'm so glad that they brought another Alien movie out. And it sounds like you and I may have some differing opinions on Alien Resurrection, but I'll just say I liked Alien Resurrection a whole lot more than this one, so I was glad that this was not the lasting legacy of the Alien franchise.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that, I guess, when we
get to that next movie. Yeah, that little teaser there, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So, what happened next? We've already talked ad nauseum about all the stuff that David Fincher did because he was part of our Triplecast. But just to recap, we even talked about it earlier in this movie, or was that in our last podcast?
Well, we mentioned 7 that he had done. You mentioned a couple.
Mentioned 7. He did Zodiac. He did The Social Network,
Fight Club,
Panic Room,
Memento.
No, that's Christopher Nolan.
We did that with Twist Movies.
Yeah,
I was like, well, we did that one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. It was Christopher Nolan. Yeah.
So he's had a pretty amazing career.
Yeah,
in movies, done a lot of good movies. Charles Dutton was known for Rock.
And I loved that show. That's where I first met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such an intense actor. He also did a bunch of other creepy movies, like Secret Window and Gothica, just to name a few. Charles Dance, I don't think he's been in much. Let me Google him real quick. Let me Bing him.
I've got him pulled up.
Yeah. Most recently, he's been Tywin Lannister in the hit HBO TV series Game of Thrones. So that's where you might have seen him.
That's right. Yeah, no, Jason had shared that with me. I didn't. He told me that, and I still didn't know who he was because I haven't seen Game of Thrones. I'm seeing a lot of different TV movies and things. Yeah. Nothing is really jumping out to me.
I didn't recognize him right off the bat. Usually on IMDb, you can get that poster. It says most known for.
Yeah.
Actor Alien 3 is what he's most known for.
Okay.
He was also in Gosford Park. He was in The Last Action Hero.
Yeah, he sure was.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I just saw that too.
And a movie called Swimming Pool.
Which I've never heard of before.
I have heard of it. It had Helen Mirren in it.
Okay.
That's about all I know.
Okay.
All right. Same vein.
I don't even know what to say here.
Well, there's actually a couple.
Okay.
There's a German movie that came out, I think, in 2001 called Das Experiment. It doesn't deal with Alien, but it does deal with prison and how crazy that can make you, sort of. It's actually a really interesting movie. They redid it with Forrest Whitaker and Adrian Brody and did an American version.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen it. I heard it was terrible. I can recommend the I think it was German. I'm pretty sure it's German.
Okay.
German movie. The TV show Oz.
I guess, it deals with
prisons.
Yeah.
But here's one that's really in the same vein.
Okay.
There's a movie coming out this summer called Lockout, starring Guy Pearce.
He's in Prometheus.
He was also in Prometheus, right? It's a space station prison.
Huh.
He's an action hero that flies and has to save the president's daughter from all of these escaped convicts in space that are trying to crash this huge prison down back on Earth.
Okay. Well, I can see some similarity there.
So it's in the same vein.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I think that's it.
Okay. Is that it?
And now it's time for...
It's now time for Name That Movie. That's terrible. All right. When last we left our intrepid heroes, we were at Bill Paxton and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's correct.
And we had The Terminator, Commando, and True Lies. Those three guys did together.
Right.
So we're gonna keep with True Lies there.
Okay.
True Lies starred Jamie Lee Curtis as the wife of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's correct.
His character's name was Harry Tasker. He was a man who leads a double life. Okay. Jamie also starred in this 2003 film where she has to live a double life of sorts.
Freaky Friday?
Because of a family conflict. Can I at least finish the question first?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because of a family conflict.
Now?
Yes.
Freaky Friday.
Well, okay. I thought it might be pretty easy, but I wasn't sure.
No, that was a good one.
Yeah. So in Freaky Friday, Lindsay Lohan plays the daughter character in that, and they have an argument. There's a fortune cookie involved, and they switch places.
That's right.
And so they have to live each other's lives there for a while until they can get switched back, which means they have to fall in love with each other and appreciate each other and say nice things to each other, and then they can switch back.
And also Disney.
Yes, exactly. Your other clues were this movie also stars Stephen Tobolowsky.
Okay.
Which, he's kind of like Bill Paxton. He's been in all these movies,
yes.
Not always the star.
She was in Groundhog Day?
This movie also stars Mark Harmon.
I didn't know that. Was he in there? Was he the dad?
The husband to be?
Yeah.
If I remember right, Jamie Lee Curtis is getting married during that time of the movie too. This movie also stars Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
And this movie is Freaky Friday.
Very good.
So there you go. How sad is that I've seen Freaky Friday? It's a Disney movie, so
Yeah.
we've watched it with the kids a couple of times.
I don't know that I've actually seen it. I might have.
Yeah.
I remember the poster, though.
Yeah. If it came between that and The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan, I would take The Parent Trap every day of the week.
Yeah.
Because that was back when Lindsay was a little girl and she was innocent, and she did a great job in that movie.
Yeah,
And
before
then
she was
went crazy.
a turbo.
Yeah. All right, Clint, let's wrap stuff up here. You want to give our contact info?
Yes, if you'd like to contact us, you can do so by calling us at 304-837-2278. That's the Golden Spiral Media hotline. You can also email us at feedback@goldenspiralmedia.com. Of course, we prefer audio comments. You can do that via MP3, AAC, LMNOP, KFC, OPP, or our favorite Eggs Vortex. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Facebooky. No,
Golden
Golden
Spiral
Spiral
Media.
Media. That's correct.
That's right.
We got sounds on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Golden Spiral Media.
Mm-hmm.
We're on like 18 different social networks. Chances are you can find Daryl or I or Golden Spiral Media on your social network of choice, with the exception of Friendster, which I still can't get Daryl to do. So,
or MySpace. Although I might still have a profile on there somewhere. I couldn't tell you.
Are you on Zynga?
No, I never did Zynga.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You can also check out all of our podcasts over at Golden Spiral Media.
That's right. We have a normal website, don't we?
We do.
Yes. And as Daryl mentioned in one of the podcasts we've done tonight, and I can't remember which one it is.
We've done a few.
You can also find the Mother Load, like the Mother Computer from the show, at iTunes, at our website, at the RSS feed. You can find all over the Golden Spiral Media. Excellent, excellent podcasts. Check it out.
Yep, that's over. It's the all-inclusive feed is what that's called. And I didn't mention this in the last podcast, but all of our podcasts are now being video recorded, and they're available on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/The Fringe Podcast. I need to see if I can switch that over to Golden Spiral Media. But for right now,
it's all good.
It's The Fringe Podcast.
That's right, because that's the other podcast that we do.
That's right.
I'm pretty sure if you're listening to this, you probably have heard of The Fringe Podcast.
I'm thinking that's probably the case.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. And if not, send us some Egg Vortex feedback. We'd love to hear it. Well, Daryl, what do you say we get out of here?
Let's do it. Until next time, Trianara.
And keep it rolling.
Triplecast is a production of Golden Spiral Media. Intro and outro music provided by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com. For more information about this or other Golden Spiral Media podcasts, visit goldenspiralmedia.com. Copyright 2012, Golden Spiral Media.